Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Views on News. We saw the Prime Minister address on Azmat-e-Shohda today and he spoke about the sacrifices of the martyrs of Pakistan today. The soldiers who sacrificed their lives, laid their lives for Pakistan. Their sacrifices were commemorated. We'll be talking a little bit about this. Of course, his address was about honoring the sacrifices of these honorable men as far as Pakistan is concerned. Anything that we can do at this time to acknowledge those sacrifices are of course too little. I have with me today Javed Siddiq, who's a senior journalist. Thank you for joining us, and Dr. Tughral Yamin, who's a senior analyst. A little later on, we'll also be talking about the ramifications of the G20 that was held in Indian-occupied Kashmir, and the fact that, of course, the countries that chose not to attend, what it speaks for the cause of Kashmir. All of that today. Javed Sab, of course, we saw the Prime Minister speak about the sacrifices of the martyrs of Pakistan. He spoke about them. He talked about the way that they've laid their lives. Of course, he also talked about the recent events that we've seen, the way that they were dishonored, and the fact that he said that those responsible will be brought to justice, and nothing short of that will suffice. How do you overall look at what was said by the Prime Minister?
I think the Prime Minister's speech was basically to pay tribute to those martyrs who have laid down their lives for the sake of their motherland. And any attempt to bring those into vilification or attack the monuments erected in their for them by the nation, I think that is condemnable, and this is what the Prime Minister has done. I also think that this was necessitated by the 9th May events, which were very unfortunate. Never before the nation ever or the people ever tried to bring these symbols of national honor and national emotions and sentiments into disrepute the way it was done by some of the PTI workers.
Javed, we saw earlier on, let me interject for a second, we saw earlier on, I think a couple of weeks ago, the Chief of Army Staff, when he spoke addressing his own troops, he said that, he talked about the warfare of the new warfare as far as on social media is concerned, information warfare, and he said that as far as bringing any sort of issue as far as people and the armed forces are concerned, their confidence in the armed forces are concerned, and no tolerance policy to those trying to create issues between the public at this time and the armed forces.
I think in our political life in the last 70 years, rarely we have seen a political party going to that limit. Attacking the general headquarters, which is the headquarters of the Pakistan Army, attacking a corps commander's house in Lahore, and then attacking the Radio Pakistan building in Peshawar, and some of the other symbols of Pakistan Air Force and Navy and Army. And this was unprecedented, and it shocked the military as well as the nation. Because of the nature of the crime that was committed. And I think it was the duty of the leadership of PTI to keep these workers who were protesting the arrest of Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister, to keep them under check. And they should not have been allowed to go to that length where they did, and where they attacked the GHQ and other military installations. And the Chief of Army Staff was actually trying to say or comment that a wedge is being driven between the people of Pakistan and the army.
And also the kind of venom that we saw recently. Let me go to Dr. Tughral, I'll come back to you. Dr. Tughral, the recent events that have happened have been seen as a follow-up an unprecedented follow-up, certainly, an unwelcome one. Nobody would have liked for that to happen, but regardless of the kind of venom that was consistently unleashed for, a revered institution of Pakistan. Would you agree?
I totally agree. It was a very toxic narrative which was propagated and perpetuated by people who are against Pakistan. It's not something to do with political ideology. It's something very unfortunate. If you use anything, even religion or ethnicity or any other thing, if you start burning your own property, if you start damaging personal properties or state properties, this is not, it does not bode well for the country. So whatever happened was very unfortunate. It should not have happened. And I am firmly convinced that there are people who are against Pakistan, who are instigating and doing some of these things. And I'm very sure that hostile agencies who want to harm Pakistan, Pakistan Army are behind it. It's bad. It's very bad. Actually, these people should be won back. They should be told, look, there's a limit to everything, and you are citizens of this country, and we are army of this country, and we should both work together. We should not fight amongst. United we stand, divided we fall. So this is exactly what they do.
And we've seen the division, the attempts. Let me go to Javed Sab, and the attempts to create a kind of divide, like you said, to create a division, which has resonated so well across the border. Isn't that true?
Yes, I think the enemies of Pakistan and those who want to harm Pakistan's unity, and those who actually were dreaming to basically create a misunderstanding, a gulf of mistrust between the people of Pakistan and the armed forces of Pakistan, they were very happy. They were rejoicing because they were not able to achieve this objective in the last 75 years. And I think this fifth generation war, which is known in the military terminology, was launched against Pakistan, and that has been launched against Pakistan for quite some time. And I think this was the apogee and the apex of that war, that the people of Pakistan were instigated to attack the military headquarters and the residences of the corps commanders, the top military leaders, and also basically to vilify the symbols of the honor and symbol of Pakistan's defense. And so I think the enemies of Pakistan were able to create that misunderstanding, that wedge between the armed forces and the people at large. And this is very, very sad and very unfortunate.
Javed, the ramifications of this are certainly, in a sense, quite long term. The attempt, the kind of resentment that has been fostered,
yes,
to create that environment. Certainly, it's going to take some time for us to deal with this kind of conspiracy. Isn't that true?
Yeah, it is. But in fact, if we look at the things, analytically, the people across our border, particularly the eastern border, they were using media and the social media to basically foment trouble in Pakistan. And they were trying to create a misunderstanding between the people of Pakistan and the armed forces. And we have seen, a huge number of posts being sent through the, disseminated through the social media, which were basically subjecting the armed forces of Pakistan to character assassination.
A consistent, concentrated effort over time.
And why the army of Pakistan is doing business and what kind of businesses they are doing. There was a book written by one of the former journalist, Aisha Siddiqa, Military Incorporated, in which she tried to paint that the Pakistan Army has basically diverted from its primary objective of defending the country, and they are more interested into business and these kind of things. So, this was...
it's part of your saying that concentrated
exactly. And
effort over time to malign the armed forces.
This has been going on for quite some time. And I think some of the analysts who are keeping a keen eye on this scenario, they were warning the people of Pakistan and the armed forces that this is being done. But I think we didn't take very effective steps to counter this, and there was no counter strategy to this, and that has resulted in this. And when the PTI was dislodged from power, I think they found a conducive atmosphere to launch a full-scale strike on this front.
And when we say that, you know, we didn't take timely action, isn't that another way of saying that we have, you know, tried to quell this in a natural way, rather than taking any kind of, you know, a violent action? But the result of what happened on 9th May has now, you know, of course, what happened was criminal. What happened was, you know, violence of an unprecedented nature. The way that it was unleashed, the way, you know, mobs were used to tarnish what are, of course, revered memories of martyrs of Pakistan.
You want me to answer that? Yes. You are absolutely right. I think it is our failure. It is the state's failure not to have noticed what is going on. And as Javed Sahab has very correctly pointed out, it is not something which has started yesterday or day before or even days earlier than that. It has been going for years now. So proper cognizance should have been taken against whatever was happening in the country, and actions should have been taken much earlier to prevent what happened on 9th of May. And sense prevailed, army did not retaliate. But what now needs to be done? The Prime Minister has done a good job. He has tried to reinstill confidence among the martyrs and the members of the armed forces, because really they were facing a lot of abuse. Social media, even within the family, people were abusing the army, which was wrong, absolutely wrong. So what has to be done now is to win back the youth who have been led astray, who have been indoctrinated, whose impressionable minds have been conditioned in a manner that they will do anything to burn the state's properties, the state's symbols of valor and heroism. So that is what has to be done, a concentrated long-term plan to win back the youth, because these are the people who can make or break your country. They are our future leaders, not myself or Javed Sahab. We are old people. People like you, young people, they must be told that this is not on.
And when you destroy symbols of, you know, your heritage,
country,
the very foundation on which Pakistan is built, when you destroy it, that is where you're actually
messages.
Doing the most damage.
Absolutely.
When you destroy the army of the most revered army of a nation, over the world also, then what is left in a country when you tarnish their memories?
No country does it to its armed forces. I attended a meeting with the ambassador of Ukraine. He said, look here, we gave up our nuclear weapons, we reduced our army to 50,000 people, and the result was that the Russians invaded us. He said, look after your army. Look after your army, because it deters foreign aggression. So armies are essential. That is why you keep them. You spend a lot of money on them.
And look at your region. And the potential, you're surrounded by a neighbor that is hostile in the extreme.
You see, India is hostile, Afghanistan is not stable.
Not stable, exactly.
Iran has also got its problems.
Yes.
So you need to have an army which can keep you together. But again, Manur, what I'm trying to say is that the youth must be brought back. There must not be any schism between the youth and the army. This is the worst thing that I've seen in my life.
I think that's a very relevant thing that you've said, Javed Sahab. I think what Dr. Tughral is saying, he's saying that the youth must be brought back. I think that's very relevant, because the kind of wedge, schism, whatever we may call it, that is now being used for whatever political
objectives.
for political objectives, for achieving personal gain. And throwing such institutions at the mercy of these conspiracies, it has to be brought back. It has to be a concentrated effort, and I think maybe Azmat-e-Shuhada by the Prime Minister was all about that.
Yes, it is. And I think the youth of Pakistan, it's a great asset for us, and this is the future of Pakistan. Almost 63% of Pakistani population comprises of young people aging between 17 and 30 or 32. And they're a great asset for us. And I think they are the engine of growth for Pakistan.
And you damage them in this way, you damage your capital.
And you're destroying your future. And there's no doubt about it that the economic situation in Pakistan has been bleak for some time. And the youth feel that there's nothing for them in the days to come, in the years to come. And we need to build their confidence.
That
and
we will be back, we will
be back
get
on
better,
the track,
we will
that
do
the economy
better.
will be once again rejuvenated, and it will be very, very, I mean, it's a very promising future for you, and you need to put your efforts and you need to concentrate and focus on rebuilding Pakistan. That should be the strategy of all political parties to basically, as Dr. Saab has said, that to win back the hearts and minds of the young people.
Let me come back to you. We have with us Ali Sarwar Naqvi, who is a former ambassador. Thank you for being with us. Ji, can you hear me? Ji,
yes, I can.
Ambassador, you know, again, I want to take your overall sentiments on the way that the Prime Minister spoke today at Azmat-e-Shoda, and on Azmat-e-Shoda he talked about the sacrifices of the martyrs who've laid their lives for Pakistan, commemorating them, acknowledging them, the tribute to their sacrifices for Pakistan. How do you overall look at this in the light of the unfortunate recent events?
Yes, I think this is a moment to reflect about what happened, and I think we have to keep in mind 2 or 3 basic principles. One is that the unity of the nation is paramount. This is one of the 3 principles in the motto of the Qaid-e-Azam, unity, faith, discipline, and the unity can only be ensured by all segments of society being on one page, being together. Now, if there is disaffection between the masses, between the people and the army, then it is most unfortunate situation, and we can come to grief. We can suffer if we don't pay due attention to our military forces, because they are, as the Prime Minister said, the first line of defense. They are the uh, uh, people who have paid by their blood and by their sacrifices to maintain the integrity of the state. And this, I think, is something that we must be grateful for and should appreciate all the time. Now, the incidents that occurred were extremely unfortunate, because it is most reprehensible that the mobs tried to attack military installations, military facilities, and vent their anger in that way, which was totally misplaced and wrong, and has done grievous harm to the state. So the Prime Minister's speech comes at the right time. The Shohada conference recognizes the sacrifices of the martyrs to the state of Pakistan, and uh, the ultimate sacrifice of their lives that they have provided to the state. So I think it's
you know, one of the things that we've been talking to our guests here, Javed Saab and Dr. Tughral, is the fact that the way, and earlier on, the COS, when he was speaking to his own troops, he mentioned a couple of weeks ago, this was much before the 9th of May events, he talked about the concern for this information warfare being used. And of course, we saw the results of which culminating on 9th May. To drive a wedge between a revered institution like the armed forces and its people, its public, that loves them, that acknowledges and has always acknowledged their sacrifices, their achievements for Pakistan, for its very foundation, has been, it seems, an ongoing conspiracy. How do you think we can go back? Of course, it's going to take time to get back, to this kind of damage that has been caused to that relationship.
The beginning that we have to, reflect. This should be a moment of reflection. And the Prime Minister's speech comes at the right time because he has reminded us of the sacrifices of our armed forces and the need to give due reverence, due respect to the armed forces and their services to the state. And we should launch a campaign to sensitize the people because for some time, I think there hasn't been enough effort in this regard. We have to sensitize the people at large about the need to be respectful of the armed forces, to consider them their own rather than consider them outside their own environment, and to in fact inspire them to do the same kind of work that they have been doing so far.
Right, fair enough. I want to move on and talk about the G20 summit, tourism summit that was held in Indian occupied Kashmir, and of course the way that our own friends chose not to attend, the ramifications of that. Javed sir, do you think it's going to, overall, as far as holding a conference like that in the first place, the UN should have perhaps acknowledged this, or should have given their own findings on this? Do you agree?
Yes, they should have, because the Kashmir is the issue of Kashmir is dispute, long-standing dispute for the last 75 years, and it is there on the agenda of UN Security Council, and we must not forget the fact that the issue of Kashmir was taken to the United Nations by the Indians themselves. The Indian Prime Minister, first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru himself took this issue to the UN Security Council, and it is still there. And the people of Kashmir were promised that they would be given the right of self-determination. They will be given the choice to remain with India or with Pakistan. So that has not been, that promise has not been carried out by the United Nations till this day, and that is the genesis of this issue. I think the United Nations should have intervened, and Indians should have been pressurized not to hold the conference in this disputed territory. And some of our friends, China, particularly Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and some other countries, have abstained from attending this conference in Srinagar. And that is because of the disputed nature of this territory. And also, India has been trying to hoodwink the international community on the issue of Kashmir. They have been giving this impression that everything is normal in Kashmir, that whatever is happening in Kashmir is foreign-inspired conspiracy, and Pakistan is backing this Indian, unrest, and they are creating this, which is absolutely baseless.
And they've gone through extraordinary lengths, of course,
Exactly.
deployed, I don't know, some 100,000 troops.
More troops, and the most militarized zone in the world is Kashmir. Almost 1 million Indian army has been deployed in Kashmir, which is a very small place.
Dr.
And
Tughral, there was, there were issues. Even the French delegates, I believe, raised questions about the extraordinary army personnel that were deployed all around this area. You know, how the schools had been closed, how there were no children, and the way that, there was no public around. They were, of course, shunned, and they weren't responded to. Overall, of course, the world realizes this region is a disputed region. We saw the annexation. We're looking at the way Modi is treating the minorities overall in India. Do you think it's going to resonate with the world?
The world is a very harsh place. There are double standards. The world is not willing to talk about Kashmir or Palestine or other places where Muslims or, for that matter, any other people who are being oppressed. The world does not talk about it. The world sees profits. It's a capitalist world. So if they see that India is a large market, they will shut their eyes, they will close it. This is pathetic, but that's the fact of life.
So you're saying the clout that India enjoys, their power in the world overall as a potential market, part of being G20, all of those things are going to play a part.
It is going to play. And then, you see, the Americans treat them as their strategic partners. They are members of the Quad. They might as well become members of AUKUS. The Americans have strategic defensive pacts with them, LENOA, COMCASA, and other pacts. So they are pitching India against China. So their sympathies are with the Indians, not with the Kashmiris. Their sympathies are not with the Palestinians. So these are hard facts. This is real politics, good or bad. This is how international politics works. So unless the Muslim countries or Islamic countries put up a joint front, this was a very pleasant surprise for me.
Saudi Arabia
declined, Turkey declined,
China.
Indonesia declined, and China. These were the only 3 Muslim countries in G20, and there was one non-Muslim country, but China is a very staunch friend, so they declined. So, and Egypt was being invited as a guest. They also did not register. So it was a pleasant surprise. But more has to be done. Kashmir, there must be a proper Kashmir policy. There must be a proper youth policy. Unless we have national policies in which our strategic aims and objectives are clearly spelled out, these will be minor victories. But we must have a clear-cut objective with us. That is the thing that I can say.
Ambassador Saab, it may be a minor victory, but regardless, it is a victory. Do you acknowledge, as far as having countries like Saudi Arabia, having countries like China, all of them, whether 4 or 5 countries choosing not to attend and have our back in this way?
Yes, quite right. I think the Indians took a step which was in violation of international law. It was in violation of the confidence that the member countries of the G20 have in the host, that they would not put the group in any embarrassing situation. Now, those who attended, they also were in an embarrassing situation because they were sitting in a disputed territory. And then there were those who completely dissociated themselves from it. And that is the names of the countries that you have discussed just now. So, yes, it was a very, very embarrassing moment for India to have the decline of a number of member countries and the considerable apprehension of those who attended, which was apparent in there, as you cited the French representative's comment. So India took a step which was ill-considered, and they have not been able to achieve anything. And for us, yes, by the fact that it ended up in a very sordid manner, it is a minor victory. It is a victory that we should be happy about. But beyond that, we have to aim at the end of the atrocities against the people of Kashmir, respect for human rights, and then eventually the resolution of the dispute. So we have to move into it step by step.
Javed sir, do you think it's we need to be more perhaps aggressive as far as our stance on Kashmir is concerned? We need to be more consistent.
Yeah, we need to have a very clear policy on Kashmir, which we have. But I think, as has been mentioned, that the clout of India has been growing and expanding, and they have been using that clout. I mean, their economic power, rising and emerging economic power India is, which is a fact. And because of its size of market and all these things, they have used it very cleverly, very deftly, to give an impression that India is a superpower. It has a superpower status, and it has been desperately trying to be a member of the United Nations Security Council. But it has not been able to succeed, although they have, India has found so many friends and supporters in the international community. But the Kashmiris themselves have written the history of the freedom fight, the fight for the freedom, with their blood and sweat. And that has a great impact on the international opinion. Even in this conference, the UN rapporteur on minorities have clearly said that what's happening in Indian-held Kashmir, why this huge security has been deployed, multi-layered military presence in Indian-held Kashmir was basically noticed by the United Nations and other human rights organizations, and they're not keeping quiet. And the hundreds of thousands of Kashmiris have been put behind the bars.
In fact, I think he said that G20 meeting was used to portray an international seal of approval on a situation that should be decried and condemned.
Exactly. So this should be, I mean, this is a huge setback in diplomatic terms. This is a setback for India, because India was trying to give an impression that everything is hunky-dory in Kashmir. And a few miscreants are doing all this, and that too at the behest of some foreign powers. And that propaganda has been dispelled even by the United Nations and the human rights organization throughout the world.
Dr. Tughral, unfortunately, we're also running out of time, but your comments on this generally, and also the fact that, of course, this is an attempt by Modi and India to paint a picture and deny the disputed nature of Kashmir, of course.
Manu, let's hold a conference, terrorism conference in Pakistan, and Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir to repay India in the same coin. You see, we cannot keep on crying on what they are doing. Let's exhibit the great potential for tourism that exists in our own country, and we can do it. We can invite delegates from abroad. We can show them our beautiful mountains and beautiful lakes and beautiful people. So let them do what they're doing. Let us project our own country in a very good manner, and let's bring tourism into our own country. That's the only thing I can say.
Ji, Ambassador Saab, of course, I agree with what Dr. Tughral was saying. We should, of course, increase the tourism, celebrate it, do whatever we can. But as far as the issue of Kashmir is concerned, the issue of making sure that it reaches every level, that has to be a very consistent effort.
Yeah. Can't hear you.
Ji, can you hear me?
Can't hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Problem with audio. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Javed Siddiq Saab, thank you for joining us. Dr. Tughral, thank you for being with us today. Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab, thank you for your very valuable input. Of course, as far as India is concerned, we saw where Al Jazeera said now normalcy does not mean normalcy of a graveyard, where you have restrictions on media, restrictions on people, and people languishing in jails. When you have international condemnation from across the board media, from even delegates that chose to attend the G20, isn't it clear that it was an abysmal failure as far as India is concerned? Certainly an attempt was made, but it did end up exposing their agenda. Let's hope that India continues to do that, and let's hope that we continue to make all efforts that we can to consistent efforts for the Kashmiri cause. Thank you so much for joining us today on Thursday.